What you're seeing on the screen now is actually an anole. Anoles are a very interesting group of lizards. These are typically going to be smaller to medium-sized and occasionally large reptiles that are found mostly on smaller islands and sometimes even the mainland. But most of the species you're going to be seeing today are from Cuba. Now, whether yours is from Cuba, Brazil, or any other small island, maybe even Jamaica, there are three things you must know when you're getting these animals into your lovely little home. Whether you're a seasoned reptile keeper, or maybe you're just starting out. Either way, this video is going to have something that will benefit you in the long run. Anyways, let's get into it. Now, the first free, technically 6 on my fingers, we're going to put up free now, that we're going to be covering mostly is behavior. Why is that? Oh there, partner, that's because, anoles, they may have gained a reputation from over the years of being shy, small, and skittish lizards. Believe it or not, it has some actual good basis if you ask me. But, let's start disproving that. For example, we're going to go over crown giants. Crown giants breaks 2 of these rules. One being most of them are fairly bold animals that are way more willing to socialize with people, and they're pretty large. In fact, they're typically the largest anole on any, island. We're going to go over one of the most popular of the crown giants and well-known simply because they kind of disavow that little thing I just said, which is the blue beauty anole or Anoles equestri podior. A mouthful, right? That's why people say the blue beauty anole, believe it or not. But these guys are obviously maybe one of the most beautiful animals on the planet. Bright blue, turquoise color, large body, and striking yellow all over, and shades of green here and there. Jaw droppers. Amazing animals to look at. But these animals have one huge flaw, which is that behaviorally 9 times out of 10, they're going to be fairly shy individuals, very cage defending, and very much not wanting to deal with you. Now, I just say all that because I want you to sit there and think, yes, the animal is jaw-dropping, gorgeous, but does the personality really work for you? Because, for example, we have another anole like the Cuban false chameleon. Now, these guys have a striking appearance. Definitely not as colorful as, obviously a blue beauty, but they kind of fit in a mishmash of being a twig anole and a crown giant. Very weird how we consider them, if you ask me. But these animals are probably the best known animal, being a anole, that is going to come out and hang out with people, being them a Barbados, Porcus, Grami, Porcus, whatever of the chameleonous clad you're going to be looking at. These animals are going to be way more likely to want to actually even look at you than a blue beauty. To some people, they might not have the best appearance. If you ask me, they're way prettier than blue beauties, maybe because I like mimicry and their whole thing is mimicking sticks. But that's just me, or maybe even you. But those are both relatively larger anoles. Are there any smaller anoles that actually, break any of those base rules of being the, what is perceived by so many people? Yes, there is, actually. And I work with both of them. You have Anoles valencii. This is a twig anole that has bright yellows and oranges and a beautiful red dewlap. These are a smaller anole, but are somewhere on the level of being on the level of, like, say, a Cuban false chameleon and how it wants to tolerate people. Not all the way, but they're really good. They don't seem to be fearful of people, from my experience, and I can take them out of the cage when I want, but I do know it stresses them, so I don't do that. And they're so rare, I don't want to stress them because I need them to make me eggs. They're so rare. I love them. Then the other is another Cuban anole, which is actually from, western Cuba, a certain hill structure, which is Anoles barshades. These are a little larger than the twig anole, believe it or not, but they're definitely still smaller. These guys are not so much in the handling ability as, say, a false chameleon or maybe even a valencii, depending on definition. But these animals are surprisingly bold. I'm talking, I can sit in front of their cage, and what they're gonna do is they're gonna come up here to the door and they're gonna look at me and they're gonna be like, "Who are you? What are you doing near my domicile?" And then they're gonna start puffing up their dewlap, because they technically don't have one, believe it or not. And then they're gonna just start being really bold. Where most anoles say various, I'll come up, I'll look at them, and then they disappear. They just, into the cage, get into the bushes, and you won't see them for maybe the next hour. Oh yeah, sit down, really let that think. Do you want a blue beauty and have to deal with the behavior? Or do you want something that, a little more behavior-wise is, like, chill? Now, the second one, technically 4, or yeah, maybe this is going to be how we talk about the rest of the video trend-wise, but 2 on my finger, will be dietary. Because this is something that we know a lot about, surprisingly, being with most reptiles, and even surprisingly with the most niche Anole, we still know somewhat about their dietary requirements, but we don't talk about it a lot, which I think is dumb. So we're going to do it here. Alright there, partner, this story I'm about to tell you has been proven to work with this species that we're going to talk about, and has been basically the base guidelines to doing this with anoles and other reptiles. Green tree python. Now, when green tree pythons were being imported, well, they still are, yeah. These animals were meat, bitey, dying left and right because we didn't know how to care for them, and they didn't want to eat, and they wouldn't retain the food. Someone down the road sat there and said, why is the animal, why is the snake that eats rodents, right, from a tropical area, eating rodents that are eating grain-based diets, like, say, if they're from America or England? It's a good question to ask yourself. It is. Really good. It's actually leading to where this is going. So, he started feeding the rodents in question that are being fed to his green tree pythons to fruit, right? Now, that had a effect that no one actually expected to do anything. And the animals actually didn't regurgitate their food, and it stayed in their belly. Once it stayed in their belly, obviously the animal had better proteins, hydration, etc., etc. The animals got healthier, they looked nicer. And on top of that, if the animal's healthy and looks nice, behaviorally they're going to start being a little more easy to deal with. Now, after all those things started to get figured out, just off the small thing of fixing the diet, guess what? They started to breed, and we started to have captive bred specimens. Cameron, why are we talking about a snake if this is for anoles? That's because it's related to this, guys. It's related. Also, it makes the watch time on the video slightly longer, and I think it's a good story. You know, hearing that story, Ron St. Pierre heard that and said, well, I have these crown giants here.
I believe we represent the only ones left in captivity. There were 2.4 adults, but this year I produced 20 some odd babies.
Is that right?
And I'm still getting more babies.
Now, he started feeding their feeders fruits and started feeding them fruits as well. Now, this is the craziest thing that you'd ever expect. They started to thrive. They started to go bananas, believe it or not, to the point where blue beauties are a common reptile. Most people know what a blue beauty is, most people know where to get a blue beauty, etc. Same with other crown giants. In fact, I've worked with almost every crown giant in Cuba, besides Baracoa and a handful that we don't have in the States, at least in high populations yet. Doing all that made these animals more accessible to people. Look, that's one of my favorite anoles here. Anoles lutoglaris. Love them. They're in my logo, guys. I have them thanks to people feeding snakes rodents that ate fruit. Isn't that crazy? It is. So I want you to take that with a grain of salt and sit there and think, what are you feeding your anoles at home, or what are you going to feed your anoles at home? Be it a smaller anole or a crown giant, they're going to be from a tropical place that they're going to eat things with fruit or eat fruit already. So you should be offering your anoles some fruit occasionally, but they're insects, you should probably be feeding them fruit. For example, my crickets, dubia roaches, red runners, and a list of other feeders that I don't feel like naming off, I'll feed my anoles, they eat a lot of fruit. Sometimes I even try to feed them fruit from the native environment, but that's expensive and it's seasonal, so that's only something we do at parts of the year. Yeah. Oh, yeah, hopefully you take that down into your soul, your bellows of your heart, and you remember it. Boop. Ladies and gentlemen watching this channel, may I ask you simply to sub to the channel, leave a like, drop a comment, share with your friends and family. Most importantly, tell me what is the most interesting thing you've learned in this video thus far, halfway through mark. Personally, if it was me, I think the big thing would be talking about the dietary, because that's such an interesting little thing and such a unique story. Anyways, I know some of y'all hate this. Thank you for watching, and greatly appreciate y'all for watching the video so far. Don't worry, we're back to the regularly scheduled program. Now, my friends, sorry if the audio quality sounds a little worse. It's because our mic here doesn't know when to actually work properly. I'm so sick of it. Can't wait to be filming on the Canon M50 with the new mic. Tease for a future video hopefully soon. Anyways, this is the last part of the video. Be it or not, we have one thing to discuss. Now we're gonna have this because that's how we're doing the rest of the video. Boom, one finger. And it's gonna be actually talking about, kind of related to the first subject of the video, where how we said blue beauties are gorgeous animals, jaw droppers, and absolutely possibly one of the most prettiest animals on the planet. But behaviorally, it's like a sack of potatoes. Now, my friends, let me tell you how to actually work around that. And make sure you have a good build-up to a positive relationship with your anoles, and you can even use this for other reptiles, but it's targeted like to anoles. Now, once our new friends get into your lovely little home, leave them alone. Just let them chill out in their home, in their nice planted enclosure, and they don't have to exist near you. First week, just let them be, feed them, water them. Don't do much. Don't even really acknowledge them. Just, like maybe eyeball it here and there. Make sure they're okay, but don't deal with them. You know what I mean? Just let them relax. Then the second week starts. What you want to do here is you want to just start chilling near the enclosure. Just be near the enclosure. Don't even make eye contact. Don't even look at them. Don't even look in their general direction. Just be near the enclosure so they can see you. The reason you want to do this is because you want the animal to start associating you with not being an issue. You're going to exist near them and they need to get used to it. Then next thing you're going to know is that the animal is going to eventually start just being out of the foliage a little bit more when you walk by, being more willing to even make eye contact with you. Now this is a good sign. Reason why is because this is going to help us start the next thing. Next thing is going to be eventually trying to do cooler stuff, like actually looking at it, being more direct. Let's say the animal is needing a misting. You're going to open up that enclosure door and you're going to look at them like this. You're like, hey buddy, psst, water, and be like, nice, throw some feeders. Now, those are some basic information, and it works 9 times out of 10 to at least start positive relationships. The more advanced stuff can be its own video, believe it or not. Let me know if you want a in-depth guide to how to actually make you friends with your best friend, the Anole. But what you want to do after that is simply just sit there and be like, hey man, I know we got a positive relationship, but I think you need to start upping your rent. I feel like you're not contributing enough here. Rent's high, you know the economy. So you're gonna start doing about 60-40, okay? Obvious once the Anole agrees to that, you now have a successful friendship with the animal. Once that actually, the first part where, the animal gets more comfortable with you, what you can do there is obviously start attempting tongue feeding. Best way to start this is say when you throw food or water in the enclosure, you have your tongues ready like this, kind of to the corner where you're not really there, because the animal's still not that useful, and you just have a cricket, a roach, whatever you're feeding, on the tongue, and then sometimes they start to take it. Once they start taking it on a consistent basis, you move out and you make sure that your presence is more so known, and then after that, they're gonna be eating off tongues a lot better. Then, positive relationship formed, you can do cool stuff here in Anole, and the animal isn't gonna be super skittish, which means the animal is gonna be more willing to be seen, and you get to see this super cool animal. Anyways, into the video. If you liked it, let me know. Remember, like, comment, share, tell all your friends, whatever we're gonna say. And if you want to watch another video that's really interesting, watch this video. This is another video that is related to anoles, but it's gonna be simply about products you need if you're getting an anole. Kind of related to this video. Ooh, hope it helps you. Bye bye.